a recent recovering Catholic, and I have some questions about belief. My mom is an organist. I've been singing with her for about 30 years, and I still do go to church. However, I was confirmed at 16 into the Catholic Church based on instructions from other Catholics. And I'm sort of starting to realize that belief based on just what you've been told, I don't really accept it as belief. At least that's what I'm coming to now. I don't think I really believe something until, acceptance of instruction is, it can only take you so far.
It's training, right? Exactly. I mean, you're describing training.
You could call it brainwashing or something like that. But I would like to know, if what's true belief, how far can I was confirmed. I said, yes, I believe this stuff. But it's never been borne out in reality.
I've done some talks recently about this topic, so I'm going to hit this. And I think that it may be the wrong direction to go to say that it's not a true belief, okay? I know what you're describing because that's what it feels like when you come out of it. You think my beliefs now are different than my beliefs then. And I think that that is correct, right? So you had different evaluations for what you believed previously, which was no evaluation. And then you have now beliefs built on evaluating evidence and drawing a conclusion. And so this feels different to you. It's a different experience of getting to the idea that this is true. And so you're saying they're not the same.
Turned on finally.
Right. But when it comes to belief, all they're asking is, do you hold this as true? And I would say that the wrong way to look at it is to say, yes, I did, but it's not a belief, because that's going to cause more problems than solutions. So I would say, let's go ahead and call them both beliefs, but let's look at the processes involved in reaching them, because that's where the difference really lies. It's not in whether or not you thought it was true, because they're going to be the same at that point. You can't go up to somebody who has not well developed their belief and tell them that they don't hold this as true, because they're going to tell you that they do, and then it's going to be a useless conversation.
Or that it's not a belief.
Right. They're going to, they do think it's true, but they think it's true for a different set of reasons. What I talked about quickly was identity development in people, and how do we come to the idea that we associate ourselves with certain beliefs, right? How do I determine that I associate with the Italian-American community, or that I say, I don't really associate with them? How do I identify? Do I identify with that community? Or do I identify as an atheist? Or do I identify as an agnostic? Or do I identify as a project manager? Or do I, do I identify as a mother, as a wife? All these things that you can incorporate into your identity of who you are. And in some cases, we develop an identity that is called foreclosed, right? Where what happens is you're adopting an identity based on expectations and based on basically what you should be believing. And then there's another type of identity which goes through what used to be called the identity crisis, right? And it doesn't mean that you're freaking out.
Sure.
It only means what Anthony was talking about. You hit this stage in your life where suddenly you're hit with, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because you're about to grow up. So what job do you want? Do you want to get married? Mm-hmm. Do you want to have kids? There's this point in your life where suddenly these questions become very real, and you are expected to explore these questions. But in some cases, people don't give you the opportunity to explore. They simply hand you the answers and say, go forth with these answers.
Sure.
And people do. And the people that do that...
In my case, along with exploring that, in my personal case, I'm a choir member. My mom's the choir director. I went to church. I just went with the flow. I was involved and I did that, but I never really did investigate what I was taught.
Right.
I never really even thought about it. I just went along with it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed singing. I still do, honestly, but when I go to church now, and I'm really only doing it because it's fulfilling to my mom. She's elderly and she still plays.
I understand.
And I want to be there for her as long as I can. But when I go to church now, it's completely different. I mean, it's hard to describe, but I in no way believe any of this stuff anymore, and I feel like a hypocrite going there. I feel like I'm covering for...
Yeah, the feeling of hypocrisy is interesting too, and it's part of it. Basically what's happening is you have this identity that is like the real identity that you experience and that you have come to based on actually evaluating things. And it's in conflict with this other identity, which is the identity that you feel like you have to put on to make mom happy. And so you feel this conflict and you're saying, I feel like a hypocrite. I feel uncomfortable when I go to church and I know I don't believe this. And this is what plagues a person. This is what's wrong with the foreclosed identity, is that the person is constantly going to be fighting conflicts between what they really identify with and what they're trying to, and they're suppressing that, and they're trying to maintain this other identity that is like this surface structure that they've adopted because it's what's expected. And the longer you maintain it, the more you just have to keep fighting this conflict that's never going to go away because you're never going to be what you're not. And that's what you're describing.
Exactly. I've already kind of decided on my path ahead. When my mom decides to retire from playing, I will no longer be going to church. And that will probably upset some of my family, but not others. I have atheists in my family, and I have fundamentalists in my family. So it's going to be an interesting ride. But I am putting, I've decided not to have that conversation with my mom unless she directly asks me, and that at that point may change my relationship with my mom.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Everyone has to make those decisions on their own because we all have to live with the fallout from whatever we do or don't do. Yeah.
But as far as my belief prior, during my years of non-investigating this stuff, I suppose I could call it belief. I don't really want to. I'm kind of ashamed now that I actually believe that stuff. But now having seen the light, I mean, it was your show, and it was Christopher Hitchens and Rich Dawkins and Intelligence Squared debates that did it for me. Mm-hmm. And when the lights went on, it's not ever going to go out. So
yeah, I would, if you want, you can look up foreclosed identity, and you'll probably find a lot of information that you'll relate to. And I think that, like I said, I would go ahead and just consider them all beliefs, but I would, look at the processes and the differences there.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much. You have a great show, and I very much appreciate the work that you guys do.
Well, thanks very much for your call.
Thank you. This reminds me of a talk that I gave to Chicago Atheist Society where I sort of build a stack of blocks to show how you have the person, you have these beliefs, and then here are all the justifications, and then there's all these other things that motivate them. And I have this green block. And it's going to look weird because of our green screen.
Oh, it's there you go, the transcendent block.
This is the most important part. This is the person, and the beliefs are separate from the individual, but these deeply held beliefs are so tied to a person's identity that it is often hard for a person to separate those cherished beliefs from their sense of self.
Well, yeah.
And you have to be delicate when you challenge those beliefs because
people
will feel attacked.
The values and the beliefs actually are our identity. When those change, our identity changes.
Yeah.
So if I were to, like, for example, move from being an atheist to a Christian, that would be a change in my values, my beliefs. Like, it would be literally a shift in my identity. And I would say I identify as this now and not as this.
Your social group that you're a part of,
right.
that moral community that you'd have to move from one community to another. Yeah, it's challenging.
But sometimes those the things that we adopt are going to be in conflict, like in a conflict with who we are. So we hear this a lot from people who are raised fundamentalists who, for example, are gay. Those people can say all day, that no, I'm a Christian and I'm straight, or, I just battle these same-sex urges, but I'm not gay.
Go through people are very good at jumping through
And
hoops.
you will battle that your whole life, probably. The odds are that you will continue to battle that because that conflict is not going to stop. And Christians will basically say that, that's the conflict between your evil natural self and this, Christ-like veneer that you're supposed to put out.
That's just the sin.
This is how they get you to foreclose, right? They get you to say, like, oh, yes, I need to be this, and I need to just suppress who I really am, like, really hard. And then you end up with problems.
What kind of life is that?
It's a horrible life.